everyone, and good evening. Welcome to EduAdvisor Webinar Central, the platform where we bring you topics you care about delivered by industry experts. I'm your host, Nina, and before we dive in, let me quickly introduce EduAdvisor, your go-to platform for making smart education decisions. Now, whether you're exploring courses, comparing universities, or looking for scholarships, EduAdvisor is here to guide you every step of the way. You can also check out our career tools, exclusive webinars like this one, get help with your PT application, or speak with an education consultant for personalized advice. Plus, if you apply to EduAdvisor, you may be eligible for exclusive tuition fee waivers, discounts, or applicable fee rebates with our partner universities. If you're not sure where to start, just head to eduadvisor.my. We're also everywhere on socials, so stay connected with us on TikTok and Instagram for campus insights and fun education content. And don't forget to follow our WhatsApp and Telegram channels for updates on upcoming webinars. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's topic. So, our topic for today is the University Survival Guide, Social Life, Grades, and Everything in Between. It's my pleasure to introduce EduAdvisor's very own student ambassadors who will be speaking on today's topic. We have Samuel Yeo from Heriot Watt University Malaysia, Lee Kai from Taylor's College, and Tenuan Kosi Sibanda, alumni of Taylor's College. Hi guys, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experience.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hi. All
Hi.
right. So before we begin, just a bit of introduction about our student ambassadors for all of you here. We'll start with Samuel. So Samuel is a first year actual science student at Heriot Watt University Malaysia and also a Gamuda scholar. He is keen on developing real world soft skills that can't be learned in a classroom and is interested in the banking, investment, and finance fields. Moving on to Kai. Kai is currently studying math, biology, and chemistry for Cambridge A levels at Taylor's College. Outside of academics, she's actively involved in the Performing Arts Club at Taylor's and is passionate about constantly striving for excellence personally and academically. And last but not least, Thando is a student from Zimbabwe who has recently completed the Foundation in Science program at Taylor's College and is about to begin his undergraduate medical studies. Fluent in 4 languages and currently learning French, Thando is passionate about exploring new cultures, connecting with nature, and meeting new people. Now, our student ambassadors are part of the EduAdvisor Student Ambassador Program, where students like you guys can get first-hand insights and honest advice from peers living your dreams. If you're interested in knowing more about our Student Ambassador Program and how you can reach out to one, check out the link sent in the chat box. Now, before we get started, because we have a long list of questions to ask our ambassadors, if you guys have your own questions for Samuel, Kai, and Tando, type your questions in the chat box at any point of the session, and we'll get them answered during the Q&A session. Now, enough from me. I think I've spoken a lot. Let's just dive right in, okay, you guys? Let's start with some icebreaker questions to kick things off. In one word, how would you describe your university life? We can start with you, Samuel.
In one word, I would say that it's very transformative because it really pushed me out of my comfort zone and it helped me to grow both academically and personally. The version of me after SPM and who I am right now is like very, very different. I'm much more outgoing, more confident, and I have a clearer sense of my future path and who I am as a person. It's been a really great chapter of my life.
All right. What about you, Kai? You're still in college now, so how would you describe your uni life so far?
Yeah, I've just started pre-university like a year ago, and I took IGCSEs before then. So the gap between IGCSE and A levels, I would say it's very, very different. I remember being really laid back during my IGs, but right now it's much more, I would say challenging and like tough, but it's also doable.
Hey, and what about you, Thanda? You just finished your foundation in science. So how was that like?
For me, I'll probably say epic because a lot of the things I was worried about moving far from Zimbabwe, friends and culture, it completely was unfounded. My friends were amazing. The culture, Malaysian food is just a unique experience, and I definitely grew over the duration of the foundation and science program.
All right. When you guys first entered university, what was the one thing you thought um uni life would be and how different would that be? I know Kai, you've already mentioned this in terms of IG and then pre-U, but what about you, Samuel?
Honestly, I thought that university would mostly be around like academics and stuff. You go to uni, you study, you get good grades, and you graduate, you know. But I realized that it's also more about personal growth, where we have to like learn to take initiative, work with others, and become more confident outside the classroom. And I'm also currently involved in many leadership roles throughout my like university.
Okay, and what about you, Thando?
Like Samuel said, I thought it'll be a lot of academics, you won't really get much time, but I found out that it's the balance, you really do get time to explore, meet new places, friends. So it's definitely that.
Okay, is there anything about uni life that caught you guys completely off guard, Kai?
For me, it's like how time flies, honestly, because how tough like the courses are and how rigorous things are with like the syllabus and every topic will finish by like a 1 or 2 hours. It's honestly you have to be really independent with like your workload and you have to schedule your time wisely.
Agree. What about you, Samuel?
For me, it's how much growth happens outside the classroom. I mostly thought that like our growth would be inside the classroom academically, but then leadership roles and events, interactions with different people taught me lessons that I didn't expect to like learn in university. In fact, I believe that what I learn outside the classroom is actually more valuable than what books and exams can teach us. And it's something that I'll be like bringing into every aspect of my life.
Could you like sort of elaborate on that? Like what kind of things that you've learned outside of classroom, aside from I guess interacting with your peers, like what are the activities that you do outside of classroom that sort of help you with your growth?
I think the most important one would be like communicating with people. I've gotten better at like talking with people and stuff. And when I help to like organize events, I'm also like I'm learning how to actually organize an event and what I have to plan out all the logistics and stuff. And I think that's like really useful.
Okay, understood. All right, let's move on with the next question. Thinking back to your first few weeks, I know it's gonna be a bit of a stretch for you, Thando, because you just completed your studies, but if you could just, go back in memory lane, what was the hardest adjustment for you personally? I think we can just start with you first, Thando.
Um, I think it would have to be the weather and food. Um, Malaysian food is very, very different from food back here, so it did take me a bit of time to adjust to that. And the weather, I wasn't really used to the humidity, so it was a bit of a shock for my body. But other than that, the people, the culture, Malaysian people for me are one of the nicest people like and on the planet. You definitely don't feel separated or different. So not much that culturally shocked me, but except the food and the weather.
Were there any lifestyle adjustments that you had to make when you first arrived?
I would say academic wise, definitely the timetable. So back here, our classes normally end around 1 o'clock. They start at 7, not really a break in between. But when I went to Taylor's College, you had classes sometimes the whole day, or some start at 2, 3. So that was definitely a big adjustment for me. Working a new timetable, having to manage your time. But eventually I got there.
Okay. What about you, Kai? What was the hardest adjustment for you in the first few weeks when you started your pre-U?
Mm, I would say it's similar to Tando's that like the time and the schedules are all different. Especially from high school, you'll have a set time of like studying 3 hours, then one break, and then another 3 hours. But for college, the classes are all around, like all over the place. So you have gaps and like breaks for ranging from like 3 hours to like 2 hours and 4 hours. So you really have to like manage your time well, which I didn't really in the first few weeks. And also, the education and the academics, they're quite like much more in depth. So like you have to really pre-study your subjects and before the lessons. Yeah.
Okay. And Samuel, you're the only one here that's doing your bachelor's. So thinking back to your first few weeks, what was the hardest adjustment, especially when you jump from what you were doing before and into your degree?
Actually, I also did my foundations in Harriet Watt, so I think it will be more relevant for me to talk about my first few weeks in foundation. And I would say that's also similar to Tandos, where for me, it was more like the challenge was finding food because I came to West Malaysia for my foundations and my degree. And I don't have my own car to like travel around, so my food options are, if I were on my own self, it would be like limited to what's within walking distance. But luckily, I had a housemate that had his own car, so I usually go out to dinner with him. And afterwards, we also eventually bought groceries together and like started cooking together.
So it sounded like you had someone there with you to support you through that transition,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
great. I think that's what students typically need in their early stages of their uni life. Um, Tando, like speaking on your experiences, just jumping on this quick bit, at what point did it really hit you that you were far away from home?
So when I came with my mom. She was here for about 2 weeks. She wanted to make sure that I settled in well, and even though she won't admit it, I know secret vacation. But when she left, that's when it became the harsh reality that it's now like I'm by myself, I'm independent, responsible for looking after yourself, time management, bills, everything is on you. So you have to adapt quickly, become an adult. So I would have to say the realization that I'm alone in a new country and I have to be responsible, be safe, and just take care of myself.
Okay. Now, the three of you are in unique stages of your tertiary education, right? So, Kai, you're in your pre-year. Tanda, you just completed your studies, your foundation science, and then Samuel, you're in your degree. So, let's just talk a bit about your academic experiences. So, Sandu, how different is it studying pre-U compared to high school?
There are a lot of group projects at like foundation and science compared to high school. It does contribute a lot towards your final grade. So that was a new adjustment for me because from IG and A levels in high school, you're used to just, final exams are what contributes everything. And then like you mentioned earlier, there are some things that are quite different, like for example, the timetable. I'm used to a set timetable where it's just 1 hour is physics or chemistry. But then you go to foundation, you could have a physics tutorial in the morning and then a physics lecture in the afternoon and then a physics practical and later during the day. So it did take some adjustment, but I think that was the biggest thing for me.
As for you, Samuel, how do you compare the pace of pre-U to a degree now?
Compared to pre-U, I think the pace of a degree is definitely faster and more demanding. And but that said, Harriet Watt's foundation program is already quite rigorous, so the transition wasn't as huge as a shock for me. But the depth and the expectations at degree level are definitely significantly higher. As during foundation, it's more like the base of what you're gonna study in degree, while degree is the actual things, and the subjects require more like analytical thinking, and you need to be like really understand them to be able to score instead of just memorizing all the formulas and stuff.
All right. Was there a particular subject in your actual science degree or a skill that you had to learn that made you realize that, okay, you're in your degree now. It's a whole different like area compared to your pre-U.
I think real analysis and linear algebra are definitely like one of the harder subjects in my first semester. And those is like it's like really, really hard. I had to like use AI to be able to like comprehend them and learn about them. Yeah.
Okay. Thendo, you're about to begin your MBBS studies soon. How are you mentally preparing yourself for that transition into a very demanding degree like medicine?
Um, so one of the things I started doing back home is I got the chance to do like an internship at a local hospital. And then in that internship, there's like a mentee mentor program with one of the senior doctors and some of the students at the local medical school here. And through that, I gain insights into the demands of the medical student, for example. There'll be moments where you know you're going to be swamped with exams, so you need to focus the study routines, the insights into the different qualifying exams, like if you want to end up in America or Europe or Australia, to just sort of prepare me for what lies ahead. And then definitely getting firsthand experiences from the students themselves about what was challenging, what was stressful, the highlights of medicine, and how better I can prepare for it.
Okay. And this one's for you, Kai. So you did your IG and then now you're doing your A levels. So A levels has a reputation of being one of the hardest pre-U programs out there. So I just want to sort of get a clear understanding. What is it like for you? The difference in terms of pacing from high school, IG, and then now A levels.
Um, For IGCSEs, you have like a set schedule. As I said before, like high school, you have like around like 6 hours a day for 5 times a week. But for pre-U, usually for each subject you take, for the first sem, you'll have 7 hours. So that's 28 for 4 subjects and 21 for 3 subjects. But after in Sem 2 and Sem 3, it's 6 hours for each subject per week. So you'll have more time, your free time to go and review your own studies and your what you learn like during the day. But then it's also quite the content is much more in depth and it's also really fast. So you need to like spend more time like studying and using those time wisely um instead of like the free time you have during high school.
Okay, understood. Um, let's just talk a bit about workloads. So, like, I assume, or I guess I figured with foundation in science, actual science, and then you have A levels, you can imagine that things can get piled up. How do you guys usually manage your workload? We can start with you first, Samuel.
For me, usually if I have like any meetings or replacement classes, I would save them into my calendar first so I can always like refer back to the time and date and I wouldn't get confused. Other than that, I also prioritize my tasks based on like the urgency and importance when the assignments are due and whatnot. And this really helps me to like manage my workload smoothly without feeling too overwhelmed. So usually I don't really have much trouble managing my workload, I'd say.
Okay, and what about you, Kai?
Mm, I've been journaling a lot and like I used like a planner for the past like 5 years. So typically I would write down my schedules also and like what assignments I need to do and my pre-studies. Usually I'll make flashcards or I'll have like Excel sheets for because it's usually you're doing past papers. So you would track down each and every year that you do and compare your grades from and see your improvement and see areas you need to like focus on. So that's how.
Okay, and what about you, Thando? How do you manage your workload?
For me, one of the first things I did was create a good friend group. So I know that if you're having stresses or pressures, you can relate with other foundation science students. Let's say it's a difficult topic, you can go as a group to approach the teacher or the lecturer and get insights. And Taylor's does have a peer assistance learning program where a student in the semester or a few semesters above you can help you if you're struggling. So that was very, very good for me, especially adjusting to new subjects that I hadn't yet learned in foundation and science. And then the lecturers and the tutorials are very approachable, so they do help you to adapt and understand quite easily.
Okay. Were there any specific tools that you use? Like Kai, she used a planner. What about you? Are there anything that you use?
I did have a planner too, like to just make sure that your time management is on point because there are moments where there are a lot of assignments and group projects due. So it does help to have a planner to manage your time and your assignments. And Taylor's does have an online platform that does allow you to manage it quite well. It gives you reminders of when assignments are due, so that does make it quite easier.
Okay, all right. I'll just move on to the next question. In this academic sphere, what's one academic mistake that you made early on that affected your grades or stress levels? We can start with Samuel.
I'd say like my biggest academic mistake I made early on was choosing the wrong partner for a group assignment. I knew he wasn't the type to do his share, and he's like not very focused on his academics, but he kept like pressuring me to be in a group with him, and eventually I gave in and agreed to work with him as a duo. And halfway through the semester, he just dropped out halfway throughout, like he just dropped out of the course. So I had to like take on the remaining projects alone. And it definitely increased my stress during then. But in the end, it all worked out. So I guess it was okay, I guess.
How did you bounce back from that? I guess needing to, I do know that that is not a, it's a unique experience that people tend to experience only in uni, or maybe in the workspace eventually, but you don't really get this in high school. But how do you bounce back from having, I guess, someone like that as a partner, and I guess sort of dragged you a little bit? Like, how did you overcome that?
Mm, I mean, like I mentioned, he is not one that's very focused on his studies. So when I agreed, I was already expecting to do most of the workload. So I was like already kind of balancing it out. And when he suddenly dropped out, the lecturer asked me if I wanted to like join another group or just continue it alone. And I already had most of the stuff done, so I just told the lecturer that it was fine, and I just did the assignments myself.
Okay. What about you, Kai? What's one academic mistake you made early on in your pre-U, that affected your grades or stress levels?
Probably like underestimating how much syllabus and how much um study and the workload there is because the fact that there's so much like break gave me like such a misleading like concept of how like oh you can spend these times like enjoying your breaks and like talking to your friends, but really these hours and these breaks are so crucial for you to like get started with your work or like be ahead. Yeah.
Okay. What have you done differently since, like underestimating it, and then what have you sort of come out of that headspace in order to get things done more proper?
Mm, I realized that like the friends I made also are really important because they really because usually like the breaks are which you hang out with your friends. So you really want to find people who are like who wants to like study with you and go for study sessions and like peer tutor groups, which are really helpful. So you'll feel like motivated that like oh someone's doing the work with you instead of like independent.
Okay. What about you, Thunder? What's an academic mistake that you made early on that affected your grades or stress levels?
I would definitely say I thought foundation in science would be quite similar to my high school back home. So I did underestimate the in-depth how in-depth it would be, the level of the studying that would be required, how much effort to put in. So my GPA in the first semester wasn't exactly where I wanted it to be. But when I did find my feet, I found out that it's about adjustment, and in the end, I was able to boost my GPA up. So it was more of just understanding the differences and then adjusting to the differences so you can cope.
Okay, all right. Now, one of the unspoken things, I guess anxieties when transitioning from high school to uni is making new friends. I think a lot of students tend to follow their friends because they want to maintain that this familiarity. But how was that for you guys in your first semester? Would you say it was easy, or difficult, Samuel?
For me, it wasn't a huge issue. During orientation, I mixed around quite easily and met my close group of friends. And over time, we formed a close friend group of around 8 people, and we are still together now in our degree. And I also have a few other friend groups that I spend time with. So I'd say the transition socially was fairly smooth for me. Wasn't too big of an issue.
What about you, Kai?
Um, Honestly, it wasn't that hard because usually you'll mix around with people who take the similar subjects with you. So I took Maths Biochem, which is a popular choice. So there you'll have like common breaks with these people, and you'll see them pop out in your classes. So frankly, you will like interact with them and be friends. Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Tando?
For me, it wasn't quite as hard as I thought it would be because I realized during orientation or when you're trying to meet new people, most of them are just as scared as you are. But once you get over that barrier, you find out like people are really friendly, they are open. So it was more about just getting the confidence first to say hi, but then once you're able to do that, it's quite easy to make friends.
Okay. I guess on this topic, as an international student, did you encounter any challenges integrating into a new environment, not just within your uni compound, but I guess in Malaysia, in the study environment, and what helped you feel more included over time?
So, coming here, I did understand there was a Muslim country, but I wasn't really sure about the culture aspect, what's respectable, what's like the processes. So I was worried about that. But when I got here, I realized that Malaysians are quite open people. And for what you don't know, they're willing to educate you or let you know. And just as much as you're willing to learn about their culture, they're also willing to learn about your culture. So it made it a lot more easier to mingle and just settle in quite nicely. It did take some time, like adjusting, learning the new traditions, what's right and what's not. But after that, it was quite an enjoyable experience.
Okay. Um, did joining clubs, societies, or student activities help you settle in? Um, Kai, I know that you're in your performing arts club in Taylor's. So I guess on this note, I feel like you might have a bit more of an in or an opinion about this. So do you think that joining clubs or societies helped or could help? And if you think that it doesn't do any difference?
Um, so the clubs I join, I'm currently in the a cappella club and also SPART, which is the performing arts club. Usually you won't really find similar people who take the exact same like course as you. So you'll probably meet someone who takes masters, who takes like their undergrad or like graduates. So they might have like some experience and like some like opinions that they can help you with. So I met like some people who also took A levels, so that was really like helpful when I was like also struggling with my stress and my workload. I to just be able to talk to them and like say like, "Oh, hey, I went through the same experience with you and that it's gonna be okay and you just gotta push through and it's gonna be worth it."
On this note, would you recommend new students to join in clubs early or just take their time as they, I guess, cruise through uni?
Well, it depends on like the club. So some clubs require a higher like workload and they require more commitment. So for example, like there's this animal welfare club which you can join as like a participant, which you can participate in like activities when you want to. So you can start joining activities earlier so that you can really feel your ground and say like, oh, how many like extracurriculars can I do and can I cope with instead of like, oh, feeling like you're not doing enough extracurriculars and jumping in the last moment.
All right. What about you, Samuel? Do you think that joining clubs, societies, or student activities can help, or has it helped you settle in if you are in any? And why or why not?
For me, I usually only join clubs and societies if I have like a committee position. I don't usually join it for the activities and stuff. is more of a way to improve my CV. But it's also a great way to meet people and build connections that could be valuable in the future. I would definitely would recommend new students to get involved early, as it's easier to like get promoted and take on leadership roles or higher positions later on if you start early on.
Okay. What about you, Thando?
Definitely, it's a really good thing to join clubs and societies. There's a club and society for everyone. For me, one of the standout clubs was the International Student Society. So it allowed you to meet up with students from various countries, Sri Lanka, Australia, Singapore, Thailand, all over. So you guys can relate on experiences that you're going through as new students. And then locally, there are clubs as well. Like I did join the pre-med club, and we would go to soup kitchens and a volunteer. So that does allow you to get like a hands-on experience of meeting the everyday local Malaysian or interacting with students from other universities because some clubs and societies do collaborate from like Monash, Taylor's, Sunway. So it does allow you to meet new people, new friends, not just at Taylor's, but locally as well.
Okay. All right. Okay. Now with student life and university life, there comes this whole thing about burnouts, right? Academic burnouts. It's a very real part of a university life. Can you guys share a moment when you felt particularly stressed out or burnout, just the ultimate peak that you just can't seem to like, I guess you tend to remember until now? Maybe Kai, you can start first with this.
Mm, Usually for each subjects, you'd have topical exams or like topical small tests and quizzes. Then afterwards, you'd have your semester exams. I remember feeling really, really exhausted after realizing like how hard I need, how hard and how much effort I need to put in. There's like times where I couldn't really like cope with how much stress and uh s how much content there was that I have to keep consistent with. So it really made me stressed and but with like the people around you and people doing the same course, you can overcome that by as I said, like doing peer studies and like doing things together, you'll find ways that like you can like study methods that you can like share together.
Okay. What about you, Samuel? A moment where you felt particularly stressed or burnout?
Actually, like right now, I'm also already pretty burnt out and stressed because the workload in degree is much harder than foundations. I just finished two midterm exams this week, and I just got back from uni for a crowdfunding event. And after CNY, I also have another two exams and an assignment due. And I also joined like another case competition with my friends. So yeah, I'm pretty burnt out right now. But I said I'm handling it quite well, taking it one step at a time and resting when it's necessary.
Okay. And what about you, Thando?
I think for me, it was probably during midterm exams because sometimes midterm exams and your group assignments are within like a specific time period and they can contribute as high as 50% of your overall grade. So it does make you feel burnt out in between the studying, time management classes, and being far away from home. Sometimes you do tend to feel a bit homesick in between this period, so it does contribute quite a lot and it makes the burnout essentially quite real.
Right. What other factors besides academic stress, do you guys feel like could impact a student's quality of life in university? Kai, you can take this one.
Mm, I'd say probably like your social life and things outside of your studies, like the people around you. It really like the people around you really affect how your mentality is. And you have to make the right friends and like find people who are the same as you who wants to like achieve good grades and like achieve good goals and have their own personal goals.
Okay, Samuel?
Yeah, I agree with Kai also. I'd say that competitiveness and imposter syndrome is a very real thing to experience in university, especially if you care a lot about your grades. In university, there's a lot of like talented peers from all over gathered in the same room, and there'll be a few outliers that seem to like effortless, effortlessly outperform and be more hardworking than everyone else without even seeming tired at all. For me, the competitiveness helped push me to greater heights, as it's a source of motivation when you are trying to catch up with someone that's ahead of you. And there's a saying that also goes that if you're not the smartest in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And I really agree with that.
What about you, Tando?
I'd say it's more like Samuel said, trying to fit in, the imposter syndrome, because you do get some students who are trying to fit in too much, so they end up losing themselves, their identities. So if you're not careful about that when you're trying to fit in, you will not have an enjoyable experience. I think the best thing you can do is just be yourself, because even if you are yourself, you're still going to have a good time. There's a friend group for everyone. I've seen it. And you don't have to conform or just bend to try fit in. There are people who accept you the way you are.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Let's talk about money, independence, and also adulting, which is personally, I think that it's a very big gap from high school. And then once you go on to university or college, it's a whole different league that you're dealing with. What's the biggest financial or adulting shock when you started university, Kai?
Probably realizing how much food costs. Because usually like I came from Taylor's International School, so you have this small card. So you just pick up your little tray with like whatever you want, and then you just tap the card. You don't know how much it costs. And then you just go eat your food. But then now, since like everything is up to this little like monthly budget, you have to really like track and spend and look at what you spend and really understand like where is this money coming from, and where is it coming going out, and you really have to understand that like um spending not everything isn't the best option. Yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Samuel?
For me, it's also like same as Kaya. It's like food is like the main issue. It's like usually I will try to budget my daily expenses to about 20 ringgit-ish per day. And when I moved to West Malaysia, it was the first time that I had to like manage my own finances independently. And I've always been self-conscious about spending my parents' money, as I don't really feel that rightfully belongs to me to spend. So I'm quite conservative on how I spend my money, usually only spending it for necessities and having fun once in a while.
Understood. Yeah, so what about you, Tando? What's the biggest financial or adulting shock when you started uni? And I think also because you're an international student, I think it's so much different than how it is back home. So what's your take on this?
I think it comes down to how much freedom you have with your expenses. If you're not careful, sometimes you will end up wasting money on things that are not like immediately important. Part of the university experience is you want to go out, you want to explore new places, new restaurants, new sites. And if you're not careful, you could take away from something that's important. So that and food, because like as an international student, you want to explore all the different tastes, the different food cuisines, the cultures. So it is quite easy to lose track of your expenses if you're not paying attention. And then when something important does come up, you have like a shock because you're not really sure where the money went, where it's going.
Hey, how do you guys personally manage your finances or spending as a student? And what do you guys typically spend on besides food in uni? Tando, you can continue with this.
So for me, what I typically spend on is I love exploring. Like I'm very outdoorsy. So going to the beach or exploring KL, Port Dickson, sometimes Georgetown, all the local Malaysian towns. So that is something that is very near and dear to me, because back here, safaris, exploring is built within us. So that's something I wanted to do when I went to Malaysia. But other than that, I don't think there's much.
Hey, what about you, Kai? How do you manage your finances and spending as a student besides sort of just keeping track of it? Like, how do you guys budget? Like, how do you allocate this?
I think I also do the same thing as Samuel does, so just like setting like a certain amount of like money to spend in a day. But other than that, I do tend to when I'm like stressed or like when I decide to plan things with my friends, I do like spend over the limit to like relax and like not worry about my studies. I think that really helped also along the way.
Hey, so Thando, you're an international student. What additional factors do you have to consider when it came to budgeting and managing the cost of living here in Malaysia? I think this is a good input for international students who are watching this video or will be watching this video in the future. What are the things that they need to sort of factor in, besides food, like rent, healthcare? Like if you could just spare a bit of information on this.
I would say sometimes it just comes down to the small things like transportation. So that is quite a big one. If you want to go and explore, you need to factor in your transportation. How much is it gonna cost to go by plane, by train, by Grab, or even by the bus? So that's something you need to factor in. And then small things like clothing as well, because if you're an international student, you don't really have the luxury of going home every weekend to pick up a new set of clothes or bring back a new hamper. So you do have to make sure that you are budgeting for stuff like new clothes, maybe after every 2 months, 3 months, like or new shoes if you outgrow the shoes, the basic things um, groceries as well because it's very easy in Malaysia. There's a lot of options, so it's very easy to get sidetracked by a packet of Oreos with like six different flavors. It's very easy, but it's something you have to focus on as an international student because at the end of the day, Malaysia is quite affordable. It's one of the reasons I did choose it is it's a lot more affordable than European nations or Australia or US, which is quite expensive for the education. So even though it is affordable, you still have to be quite responsible with your choices.
Okay, all right. So now let's just jump into some personal reflections and advice questions for our audience. Looking back, what is one thing that you guys worried about too much that didn't actually matter in the long run? Samuel, can start with you first.
Looking back, I think I worried too much about fitting in and how others perceived me. In the end, it didn't matter as much as I thought. Once I focused on just being myself and improving at my own pace, everything fell into place more naturally. Like-minded people tend to drift together, so you'll eventually find your group of people. There's always a group for everyone.
What about you, Kai?
Mm, I think like being behind, like feeling like you're not doing enough because everyone's always like really competitive, always wants to be the best. Usually, like after your quiz, your teacher would like say, "Oh, who got like the highest grade and everything," and you just feel like, "Oh, I didn't get that." I feel so like sad and like I feel so behind. But it's okay because you are yourself and you know what your pace is, and it's okay that your pace is like different from everyone else because in the end you guys will eventually reach that goal.
And what about you, Thando?
I'd say it's okay to be scared. That's one of the personal growths I had. If you're not scared, then you're not having the full uni experience because college, university, it should scare you. You know, you should be scared about making friends or everything. So that when you do make the friends and then you overcome whatever hurdles or what you were fearing, you can feel accomplished because part of the university college experience is to be able to get over hurdles that may affect you. And like I said, just to go at your own pace because at the end of the day, the race is against yourself. You're not racing against anyone else. So just if Sam is doing better than you, it's okay. At the end of the day, you are gonna get there or even surpass but take your time. If you are going slow and steady and that's the pace you're comfortable with, that's what you should do.
Okay. What's one habit that you wish you had started earlier in university, Samuel?
I would say it's making friends with seniors. They've already done what you're about to study, they already finished it, so they know it very well. They may give you like some tips on the courses or even university life before you enter the university. And overall, it's really good to have a senior to refer to whenever you face any difficulties in your course or in clubs or anything.
What about you, Kai? What's one habit you wish you had started earlier in uni?
Mm, Probably like scheduling my time and also like meeting people who are also willing to like study during their breaks because like there are some people who just like want to have fun and aren't really that serious. So you really gotta find the right people who are also aiming the same goals as you are. Yeah.
And you, Thando?
Interacting with people from different programs because it does allow you to gain different perspectives. At the same time, you do find people that are as focused as you in different programs, so it allows you to focus and get that friend group that you need.
Okay. And we'll just take on one last question from our interview session from me. For students who are about to embark on their tertiary journey, what should they realistically be prepared for, both academically and personally? Samuel, you can take this one first.
It's a very different environment academically. It's not hard to just pass your courses and stuff. But if you want to really score well, then you have to have the dedication to fully understand the subject to its core. You also need to have like some self-study time, as most times you need to process what was taught in class at your own pace. Not everyone learns at the same pace. Some may be able to keep up while others can't. And personal wise, I'd say to be more open with and have conversations with just about anyone you meet. Having connections throughout university can be really great and enhance your university life.
Okay. Kai?
I think people should re even though like they all say like A levels is the hardest subject, but for me personally, I really underestimated that. I knew that it was gonna be very in-depth, but I didn't know how fast the pace was gonna be. And it was honestly really shocking. So like to have mentally prepared by like meeting people who graduated from the course or like is doing the course to tell you that how the classes are gonna be like really will help you eventually. And you can like get started with like a couple of like prerequisites, learning and self-learning and stuff. Personally, probably like self-discipline is really important for me and for A levels. You have to really schedule your time wisely and really plan out like each and every hour, what are you doing exactly? Yeah.
Okay, and what about you, Thando?
Academic, it'll probably be how much time and effort is required for your studies. You have to put in the work even when you don't feel like it, because there will be moments where you don't feel like waking up or you're feeling lazy, but you still gotta go to classes or you gotta work. And personally, I think, like she said, responsibility and having that good sense of judgment, because there will be moments, let's say you have a midterm coming up and your friends are planning a night out to KL, but you have to stay home and study. So it's the responsibility for the personal side.
Okay, all right. Thank you guys for an insightful answer for all my questions. Let's move on to the Q&A segment and see what questions that you have from our audience. I will read out the questions to you guys. So that we can start with the first one from Megan. Do you guys have any tips on how do I make friends in university if I have major social anxiety? Kai, maybe you can take this one.
Mm, I think like attending those orientation groups, like even though I understand it is really challenging and it is really scary to be in a new environment and to be with pe random people you don't even know. So it's like this like the orientation really gives you the opportunity to like meet people and talk to new people. So by like just pushing yourself for a few days and just like um having like small convos and like small talk is really like helpful.
Okay. I think I'll throw the next one. I'll throw the questions around to all of you guys. Maybe Tando, you can take this one from Lauren. She asks, what are tips for time management, such as balancing studies and leisure activities like hobby and socializing, solely because you like to travel and you like to do a lot of outdoors activities? So how would you respond to Lauren in terms of time management?
Time management is essentially have to figure out when you do have breaks in between your classes. And on weekends, you do have breaks. So it's very important that you have time to relax and get it out of your system. But time management wise, you can structure your assignments and your due deadlines to figure out when you do have gaps in between. And with classes, it's not always going to be a packed schedule. So there might be days where you just have one class, which would allow you to maybe go to the beach for a day or just have a picnic with the friends or something. But it's not always going to be a jam-packed schedule. So you do get the time to go out or have little adventures.
Okay. So the next one, I'm gonna toss it to all of you guys. We'll start with you first, Samuel. Do you have any advice for handling problematic team members during group assignments? I know you have one instance, but if there's any other instances that you have, how do you actually handle these people?
First off, we have to see if you're allowed to choose your team members or not. If you're allowed to choose them, then you should really consider the kind of person they are and how they would do their work in a group setting. But if the team is like randomized and you don't really have a choice, then if there are any problematic team members, you can try like mm, trying to ask them to do their share politely at the first start. And if they keep like ignoring you, you can't get like rude with them and stuff. You have to like politely ask them to do their stuff. The more rude you get, the more they are not inclined to do their work. And if it really turns into a huge issue where they're like totally don't want to do anything at all, then maybe you can consider bringing it up with your lecturers and see what I can do about it.
Okay, and what about you, Kai?
For me, we don't really have group assignments. It's more of like personal, like individual work because it's all like 100% examination based. So I guess like being with the right friends and like studying together, maybe your teacher would have like some like groups, study sessions that they want you to like be in. So you just find like the people who also want to achieve the same goals and achieve the same grades as you to like just like do your work together and stuff.
Okay, and what about you, Tando?
I would say pay attention during classes. Um, I would definitely say pay attention during classes, like who is being disruptive or who's focused, because that does allow you to get a good judgment on who you should have for your partner during labs or practicals. And at the same time, just do pay attention to how they interact with other people because they are going to be interacting with you. So you don't want someone who's constantly clashing or violent because in your practicals, you're going to end up clashing with them quite a lot.
Hey, we'll take on another question from Hiba. So Hiba says, I usually use flashcards for my studies. Do you do any of you think that in uni it might be harder to find time to make flashcards due to more responsibilities? Samuel?
I think if you manage your time right, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Usually after classes, I always make like a compressed version of the notes so I can use later on when I'm studying for exams. So if you manage your time well, then making flashcards won't be an issue.
Okay. This next one I'm gonna throw at you, Tando. Should the university's location be a deciding factor? So Sean wants to study somewhere far away to become independent, but his parents are hesitant about letting him move away. So since you have traveled countries to study in Malaysia, what is your take on this?
I would say the location is very, very important. For example, at Taylor's, I knew if I got sick or if something happened to me, there was Sunmed right nearby. Because you don't want to be in a situation where, let's say, you're at a university, but then the nearest hospital is quite far, or just basic access to something like a grocery shop is far. So while you do feel like independence is something that's important, it is, but campus location is more important than independence because independence will, I mean, the location will determine the quality of life you have on campus.
Okay. And what about you, Samuel? Since you moved from East Malaysia to study in Herod what is your take on this? Should the university location be a deciding factor?
I think it would depend on whether you have transportation to move around. I would say that where you stay is more important. Like the location of where you stay is more important. You have to like make sure you have the basic necessities around you within walking distance if you don't have a car. But if you have a car, then it shouldn't be too much of an issue.
For you, Kai, if you could restart your first year, what would you do differently?
That's a very interesting question. I haven't thought about it. Um, Probably like start early, as I said before. I like to add on to like the flashcard one. I used Anki a lot for a STEM subject, like doing my sorry, doing bio and chemistry is really, really helpful for me, especially with like finding like keywords and definitions. They're all really important. So it's really good to have flashcards. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I think I'm gonna ask this to Samuel and Tando as well. If you could restart your first year, what would you do differently? Samuel, you can take this one first.
Hmm. Actually, I wouldn't do too much differently. I think I made the right choices. Hmm. Let me think. Maybe like I said, it will be like talking to seniors more and getting around more often.
Okay, and what about you, Tando?
Um, I think it would be probably interacting with a lot more people because I ended up interacting with people towards the end of my semesters and my time at Taylor's. So I would go back and talk to more people, get more insights into the different cultures of the people, because at the end of the foundation program, what we have is a healthcare module that mimics what we're going to do in MBBS. And that definitely, like the interacting with people, definitely does prepare you for interacting with different people, like the different patients that you're going to come across as a med student.
Okay. And then Tando, I think we'll just take this one last question for you since we have gone about a little time. Do you ever feel homesick and how do you manage or overcome that feeling?
Definitely feel homesick. There's something quite, it's a bit sad being far away from your family for extended periods because I think I can only go home maybe twice or once a year. So it does make it quite sad and make me feel homesick, but it's okay because your friends, the people you associate with, those essentially become like your second family. So if you do find a good friend group, then it's quite easy to overcome the feeling of homesick.
Okay, all right. So unfortunately, we have come to the end of our session. We have gone about a limited time, so we won't be able to take more live questions. But Samuel, Kai, and Tando, thank you so much for your time and sharing your valuable insights with us. To our audience, these are our student ambassadors who are with EduAdvisors. If you guys want to know more about them, do check the link that we have sent in the chat box. Thank you guys so much for sharing your insights with us. And to our audience watching, thank you for your participation. It's been a pleasure having you guys with us. If you have further questions about your tutor education or the Student Ambassador Program, you may send your queries to us at webinarcentral.support@eduadvisor.my and we'll answer your questions there. To the three of you guys, We hope that you guys had quite a bit of a fun with this interview session. It's an honor to have you guys with us. And to our audience, we hope that you gain some useful information from this session. And yeah, have a great day, you guys. Goodbye.
Thank you.